And welcome back. And as was mentioned earlier in the show, the focus of this conversation is on the Biogas Lab, Belize's Biogas Lab at the University of Belize. And we're going to be finding out more about it with our guests that we have with us. And we're joined by Julian Passas, Dean of Faculty of Science and Technology, FST, at the University of Belize. We're joined by Dr. Abel Carillas, Assistant Professor for Marine Biology at the University of Belize, and Karen Link, Chemistry Lecturer at the University of Belize. Good morning, welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Good morning.
So I want to start off by just getting an overview. Of course, I've been saying biofuel, but it's really biogas. And for non-science students, this is just a whole lot of gibberish. But it is a significant achievement, and I want to talk about the establishment of the Biogas Lab, when the idea first got started and how you were able to get there.
Well, actually, the Biogas Lab, we've just had it at UB since November of last year. It started, I think, about 2 years ago when Mr. Henrik from the 5Cs apparently 5Cs wanted to get something in terms of alternative energy here to Belize, and he thought about the Biogas Lab, excuse me. He then contacted our then Dean, Dr. Piyosaki, who together they collaborated, wrote a proposal with feedback from the science faculty, some of who are here, and we put together this whole thing about the Biogas Lab. The Biogas Lab is a mobile gas lab. It's a CARICOM lab, actually, and so it is for the region. It is housed here in Belize. And in terms of it, it was a collaboration with 5Cs and UB, and it was funded by the German Corporation of International Cooperation, which is GIZ Rita. So they were the ones that funded it. And it was about 2 years now in the making, and now finally in November we got it established. We got some TNO, which is a German, is it Dutch? I believe Dutch company. They came in, established it, everything is set. We got some training from them as well. And right now we're working on a project with them as well. So it's starting, it's new, but we're starting to do work in it.
Okay, and you are the recent winners of the Energy Globe Award for this mobile biogas lab.
Yes.
All right, well, congratulations on that, especially since it's so early on in the establishment of the lab.
Yes.
Now, I want to bring it over to the lecturers in terms of being able to talk about having a hands-on, practical learning experience for your students through the Biogas Lab, and especially since some of them would have seen the process of establishing it as well. Let's talk about how you were able to fit that into the learning experience of the students.
Okay, well, let me just address that biofuel biogas question first. So biofuel just means fuel that comes from some kind of biological origin, right? So you can talk about ethanol from fermentation, right? The cogeneration in Corozal, where you have, orange walk. So biogas is simply gas that's coming from biological origin.
That's right.
And we're using mass that, again, we call it biomass because we're getting it from living organism, biological organism, and we're going to ferment it and we're going to get a gas from it, okay? So hence biogas. It is actually very similar to what is called natural gas, which is methane. When you do oil exploration, you find oil, you get a gas that's coming from that, and you can harvest it if you have enough, and that is natural gas. But it's the same actual gas that's there. It's just from a different source. Okay. So now, the lab that's set up is pretty simple, and so we're able to test different biomasses and to see how much gas we can get from it under different circumstances. So this was the idea. So it's a small lab and we can do small tests. And so far, we've been able to have one student doing a thesis for his bachelor's complete a short-term study of banana waste. So he looked at the leaves and the banana itself that's thrown out, and he found that it produced quite a bit of gas. He mixed it with actually cow manure and horse manure, because in fact, the biogas has two parts that are necessary. Okay.
It's an interesting combination, manure and bananas. There you go.
Yeah. So, well, sorry. Any biogas is actually two pieces.
Yeah.
Where you're getting the carbon, and what is going to actually feed on the carbon and produce the methane. So what is producing it is the living part, which is normally from manure. Yeah. Right. We like to say sludge because it sounds, you know, nicer. So we say you have to add some sludge, but where is the sludge coming from?
The sludge is manure. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Right. So you add that to your particular biomass. Could be anything. And right now we're looking at testing different waste in Belize, because we're looking long term. Maybe Belize could potentially develop a plant that would generate biogas, but we'd have to look at what would be practical, all right? You have to produce enough of the waste for you to continually supply your bacteria with that biomass. So we're looking at banana, we're looking at shrimp, we're looking at some natural plants like cohoon and leucaena, all right? But we're just starting the study. And so in the future, we might see where this might lead. And of course, we don't right now have a program that focuses on bioenergy, but we do incorporate it into a number of our courses. And so we're looking at getting more students involved, like I said.
Of course, and you know, the whole world, including Belize, is talking about renewable energy sources. There's a push to discover what works best in what setting. So this is really going to lead them into, especially if they want a career in science, into understanding some of the processes. Let's talk to Dr. Carillas in terms of the marine biology aspect and how it fits in with the biogas lab.
Great. In terms of the marine biology, biogas can also be produced by biomass that comes from algae, which is actually something that they are using in developed countries like in Germany at a large scale level to produce even electricity. For us, we have issues with sargassum, as you might know, coming into our coast and really, you know, affecting the tourism industry. So as a way of integrating the use of biogas production, I mean, we can use that biomass to basically produce gas. In a way, we're getting rid of the problem of the sargassum just being there. And at the same time, we are adding value to something like that.
So currently, the lab is being used to test the different materials to see which will produce the most fuel, right? And you spoke about the student whose thesis includes banana waste and manure. What are some of the other aspects? Obviously, I'm assuming sargassum would be one area that you would test as well, or have you tested it as yet?
Well, that's in line also for being tested, but again, there is many other things that we can look at. As an example, the shrimp industry is one example. As it stands right now, they have waste production that they have to find a way to mitigate that issue, because that it is, you know, it might be an environmental issue. I'm not saying it is, but it's potentially there. Being all agro processing industries, they produce waste, organic waste that you need to take care of. So the biogas is actually a good way of dealing with that problem. So it has multiple applications, especially in the agro industry.
That's right.
In fact, a number of countries that use biogas on a large scale incorporate into waste management. Okay, because you know, that's a good source of biomass. Right? Think about how much stuff you throw out every day, that you don't eat, the skin of your fruits, you know, the vegetables. So all of that actually can be used. Now, the reason why we focused on industrial waste a little bit more is that you are actually growing your bacteria, and your bacteria tend to like and be very specific about what they like. And so you have to treat it well. You have to provide an environment it likes, right? So it's like your pet. You want to make sure it has nice temperature, it has a good buffer system, right? Because if it's not happy, it's not going to give you the gas. And so you have to see what food it likes the best. And if you're going to be changing it up a little bit, then your system might not give you continually the gas that you want, all right? So although you could use potentially any biomass, you would have to tweak your system. And that's why you have the lab. so that you can experiment and see what are the best conditions for your biomass and your bacteria.
So even if you have the waste of perhaps a good composition, you still have to play around to find out what will be the best environment for you to get the most biogas.
And like I said, anything can be used, but some things take a bit longer to break down.
Yeah.
For example, paper takes over a year. All right, so you start it off and you pretty much won't see much going on until a year from now. Typically, if you use general waste, like the banana, it will be about 1 to 2 months before you can really say, well, this is how much gas I can get from it.
Yeah.
And so we have 2 ways of testing it. We have what's called a batch system, or we have a continual production. Right now, in the lab, we do batch systems. So you mix together your stuff, and you monitor it until you see production drops, and then you can then estimate, well, how much gas can I get from this mass over this time?
I mean, if we were really to put it in very realistic examples for people, it's your garbage. When you have organic waste in there and you close it for a day and open it, and it's like, whoa. And we mix actually organic and non-organic garbage. And that was actually something I wanted to look at. Is it then a possibility that within the school system, for example, we know in other parts of the world it's done, it's not something that's caught up in Belize, but the separation of waste can be very helpful in obtaining the materials that you need for your biogas experiments. So will that be something that will be implemented within the school, that you have an organic waste bin, and then for the others as well?
Well, actually, yeah, long term, that's what you want to look at. What is your best source of biomass? And then how can you maximize access to it? So if we find that, you know, that waste is the best one, then we'd see how we can implement it. Because remember, where you have your plant, you have to take the waste there too. So you have to think about what is the expense of collecting and then taking it to your plant. So you have to take those things into consideration when you're looking at, well, what will be the best investment.
For the community.
Yeah. And in fact, in other countries, and in Belize to a small extent, you can have individual little biodigesters where you have biogas being produced with just your waste, right? And at the end, right, you might say, okay, I've produced this gas, but what's left at the end? In fact, what's left at the end is similar to compost. And it's very nutritious for the plants. It's very good for the soil. And in fact, that's what it's normally used for when you do that batch process. Because when you're done, you need to get rid of that and you start over. Right? In a continual process, you will then separate like some of the waste material, because remember, even though the bacteria is going to be working on your carbon-based stuff, there is also a lot of things that are left over. And those minerals, very good for soil plants.
And explain to me the process. Is it simply just waiting for the material to generate the gas, or you try to speed it up, or how does it work?
Okay. To simply imagine what's going on, we're kind of trying to simulate what happens in a ruminant's gut, right? So think about a cow, right? We have digestion. Very simply, it goes in, comes out within a little while, but the cow takes a while, right? That's why it's ruminating, right? Spending all the time just digesting that material. So you are trying to create that in a lab. And so you're going to collect the gas that would normally come out from the cow and just enter the air, right? So you're going to collect that and use it more efficiently than just adding to the air. So in fact, you're not really contributing more to what's being produced. You're being the middleman and taking advantage of what's already. Exactly. So we do just have to wait when you start. So in the initial system, if you set up a plant, you have your sludge, you have your biomass, and you do just have to wait. All right? So there is literature out there about different types of biomass and sludge, and so you can start off there. That's why in the lab, you start small scale to see what is the best combination. When you have found that, then on the large scale, you can create the environment and you don't have to wait as long because you have maximized your conditions, and then you have continual output because you're going to initial wait, but then when production starts, you continually feed your bacteria and you'll continually get your gas.
So it's not, and that's to be very clear, it's not a production facility. It's where you're going to test if you want to start an industry and let's say use banana waste or whatever it is, mango peel, who knows?
Yes. Yes, exactly. That's what we're doing. And actually right now the project we're working on, it's a joint project with TNO with 4-5Cs, and we're testing different biomasses, which is what Ms. Link has said. And this is the initiation stage. It's a project that we already have, that we're studying these different biomasses. And once this project is complete, which should be by the end of next month, then we can then look at how to then further develop activities within the lab. And that's where we're looking at. We have different projects that we are looking at for possible growth, because we need to expand the lab and make sure that it can deliver in other areas, and we want to also expand it into our courses. We just got it in November, and it's kind of an accomplishment to see a student already did a research project in there. We have another student that Dr. Carias has lined up along with other projects, which he can tell you about, and then we're trying to implement it into our courses. And with time, we're looking at possibly putting in, well, more than likely adding courses in alternative energy, because that's something that Belize is starting to move towards. And so we at the university need to look at this and start addressing it as well. A complete program in alternative energy, that is something that we then have to look at a feasibility study and how open Belize is to that and so forth. But it's something that we're working on. We have also liaised with the Department of Energy as well, and they are happy that we have this biogas lab and we're looking at projects, and I guess Dr. Carias can expand on some of the projects he's looking at.
Sure, if I may. Basically what we're doing is we're looking at the applications of the biogas lab. As my colleagues have rightfully said, it's at in initial stages, but what is ahead? I mean, realistically, in other countries, what they are doing, they are using biogas to produce energy, I mean, in terms of electricity, which is, I think, way farther down the line. But applications that are really practical for Belize are in the agro-industry, agro-processing industry, for example. They use their own waste to generate heat and generate even electricity for supplying their energy needs in their own industry or company. But really practically for Belize, what we have right now is the possibilities of installing these biodigesters in rural communities, small farmers. Basically, those are the people that can use that technology right now. As it is, a lot of the small farmers right now, they have a semi-integrated system where they have a few pigs here growing, some cattle or some chicken. This is easy to use technology. And in fact, that's what we are trying to promote through the, hopefully we are getting in a project to do something like that, where we would install these biodigesters in small farmers and rural communities who have 3-4 pigs. What that's going to do for them is that it's going to produce the cooking energy that they need. It's going to take care of the waste that they're putting into the environment. At the same time, it's adding a little bit of their economic means to them. So it's really very applicable to what we can do in the context of our country. That's where we want to go, I think, generally in the next step. And at this stage, I'll take the opportunity to make a call to stakeholders that would be interested. We need to develop our lab, both in terms of the equipment, in terms of building capacity, human capacity, and at the same time, we need funding to be able to go and actually take these projects to the communities.
It's a mobile lab. That's one of the things you spoke about very early on. In terms of getting farmers, perhaps to start to have interest in you call them biodigesters, I believe.
Correct.
In moving towards that. Oftentimes you'd think saving money is an easy sales pitch for people, but it seems complicated with the science behind it when you say you'll take your waste, you'll use it, it'll generate energy, and oftentimes that comes with an investment of itself. Sure. What has been the, obviously you're at the point of making the approach, but from your own research and your own investigation so far, is there an interest from farmers to be able to move towards generating their own biofuel?
Well, that's a really tough question to ask. Having come from a rural community and a farmer, actually, sometimes accepting these technologies is quite difficult. I think the best way possible is where we can set up some models that people can see. Once we prove that those models work, I think they're is a good chance of buy-in. So it's really challenging, but I think we have to do it in that manner.
It's just instilling in them a new practice, right? So there's resistance to change, but you know, once they get into it, I think.
And it seems complicated at times too, because it's so new versus the traditional practices that they've had.
Right.
So while it's not wasted energy, it's turning waste into energy for them.
And then some people tend to think, oh, that's kind of nasty, this is disgusting, you're using manure and you're getting gas, it's going to be stinky. But in fact, the odor is not necessarily going to be that bad in terms of once you get the gas, right? There might be a little bit
I'll take your word for it.
And when you burn it, if you think about it, when you turn on your stove, it has an odor, right?
It does.
Okay, normally the gas in there doesn't have an odor,
They
but they
put
put
the
it in.
smell, yeah.
Well, this naturally comes with its smell, but it's kind of similar. And it's
You see, when you say natural smell from manure, it's a whole different thought process. But I'm sure, I'm only joking, and I know that you're very serious in what you're saying. It's not something that'll be uncomfortable for people. It's just
and you're
overcoming.
burning it, right? So once you start you don't continuously smell the gas coming from your stove.
Yeah.
So when it's burning, that odor is gone because it's going to be incorporated with the oxygen that's in the air.
And it seems nasty. Well, I don't want to say nasty. It seems like something that people may hesitate to do, but most people, or not most, a lot of people use manure for compost. They use it for their plants because of what it can do for whatever it is they're growing. So if it comes to being having a better product at the end, or better produce at the end, then I'm sure they'll be able to do it.
The thing with this is they're basically using their waste and generating something useful. So you're not only helping the environment, but you're recycling and you're producing something that you can use at home. It will provide cost savings and all of this. Now, the studies as to how much cost savings, we haven't done it, but it will be an asset. And they do have other countries where they use biodigesters for housing, mostly for cooking. That tends to be one of the easier applications of it. But on a larger scale, it can be used for additional stuff.
No, I was going to say sure for other applications, but I just wanted to add a little bit. I mean, if we think about it, it's just the normal process of bacteria breaking down this organic waste. It is happening anyway in the environment, so it's just a controlled system that we're having there. Obviously, if you are using material, let's say agriculture byproduct, I mean, we tend to think it's a much cleaner material, so I don't think we have this perception of the biogas being an issue there. So it's all the way, basically how we frame this and how what material we use to produce the biogas. But
now, my last point, because I don't want you to lose the opportunity to highlight that the Biogas Lab is for the Caribbean, for the to be able to be utilized by the Caribbean, CARICOM states, sorry. What's been some of the ideas coming out from, is it going to be done through links with other universities to be able to do some testing, or how will it work?
Well, the idea is that it is a CARICOM-based biogas lab, and the idea is that once we have developed the lab, that different countries can send in samples, they can send in their researchers as well if they want to, and so it will be catering for the whole region. There is still some work to be done to develop the lab. It is very basic in its nature. We have the structure, we have a few equipments in there. I don't know if you have a good shot of the inside. But we do want to we foresee getting other instruments, other things in terms to develop, to develop the lab. And once we have it developed to a point that it can be productive, more productive, I should say, and we can then start getting the investment from outside. But like Dr. Correa said, we do need the help from our stakeholders. And if anybody is interested, they can give us a call, and they're welcome to come visit the Biogas Lab, see the work that we're doing. We're open to those things. A simple call to us, and we'll be happy to show you all around.
It's a great first step, as you all said from the beginning of the conversation. And we know when we talk about alternative sources of energy or renewable sources of energy, it is the direction that we're moving. So to be able to have the facility in place, at least the starting point, to test, it means we're on the right track.
Yes, it's
so,
a good start.
Thank you for joining us. Congratulations on the award as well.
Thank you.
And we hope that the right persons have heard this conversation so that they can contact you and perhaps better equip the lab for you to do further testing. Yes. And thank you for the explanations of the sludge. I'm sure that'll be something that people will walk away with as well. All right. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking to representatives of the Belize Humane Society. Stay tuned.